Nick, how are you doing today?
I'm not too bad, thank you. A little bit nervous, first ever podcast, but yeah, so looking forward to it.
Fantastic. First of all, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming for this podcast as well. It's funny because I mean the first time that you approached us, it was probably beginning of last year, something like that, and then it took a little bit of time for us to actually have a sit down and meet, and then we've now been working together as well. So I'm really excited for this podcast because I think there is quite a lot of things about you as a person and about your business as well that will be of massive value for other entrepreneurs and young entrepreneurs out there.
Absolutely.
So just tell me a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about your journey. How do you start? What is your background?
So, how did my journey start? So, from there, local lad, obviously to yourselves, obviously based in Bolton the majority of my life. From leaving school, always had a strong work ethic, but equally towards sport and leisure. As every young boy dreamed of being a footballer, you know, I was certainly no different, particularly obviously with the World Cup going ahead as it is at the moment, you know, dreaming that I was playing in that white shirt. But from there then, from leaving school, I moved down south, took a coaching job with Watford Football Club. From when I left Watford, I sort of was in a little bit of a lull really, and sort of wanted to explore the world and different journey, and ended up finding myself travelling over to America.
Wow.
Originally for a summer job, obviously coaching. From there then, they had an open trial for one of the local clubs over there, who are now actually in the MLS, which is Seattle Sounders.
Wow, okay.
So from there, I went along, played football, one thing led to another, you know, and in the end ended up staying over there for about a 3-year period. You know, playing football, living the life, you know, down by the lakes, on the beach, and yeah, it was absolutely fantastic, and touring lots of cities at the same time. From coming back from the States then, I actually then studied to become an assessor, or to deliver qualifications. And the first qualification that I tried to deliver was trying to get unemployed people back into work through sport and leisure.
Wow.
You know, so obviously linking education and leisure, and certainly as we go on through this podcast explaining what we do now, you can certainly start to see the links of how it all come around. From there, then I moved into apprenticeships, and delivered apprenticeships, and certainly looking at B2B sales. And then from there went into facility management in terms of the leisure industry within schools, which sort of planted the seed then to go on to create Edu Lettings.
Wow. It's quite incredible the amount of experience that you've been gaining through your journey as well. So it's like you go to one thing, learn specific skills, and then go to another place, learn other skills as well. Do you feel like your journey and the skills that you've been learning through your journey helping you to, you know, to become a successful entrepreneur that you are now?
I think it's all about journey, and again, I go back to my coaching experience, or my playing experience within football, and even coaching a little grassroots side now as I do to give back to the community. You always take the best bits of every person you work with, you know, whether that be your warm-up drills or even a sales tactic that I've learned from someone, or the way that someone describes or delivers a presentation to you. I often look at the people that I've grew up looking at, who have guided me through my career and skill sets, and taken a little bit from every single person and sort of moulded them into my personality and my person to become who I am today, really.
Oh, that's amazing, and I think that's the journey that people need to get. Not just is what they say that you, and the experience that you have, you win or you learn. You know, I mean, it's just a process that you continue to have as well.
I think it's important on that fact that sometimes you fail as well, you know, and certainly everyone looks when people are doing well, and you know, but people don't see the times when it's difficult, yes. You know, and you are sat there, and equally in the short time of Edu Lettings, there's been certain nights when I've been tossing and turning and laying, is that the right decision? Have we done the right thing? You know, but every day is a learning day, and like I said, you can only look at it with a smile on your face the next morning and push forward to be successful.
But I think that's the mindset of a successful person. Doesn't matter what happened in the previous day, you always need to kind of look forwards and kind of say, let's do it again. Tell me, I mean, one of the things that really excites me about this podcast is the fact that, and excites me as an entrepreneur, is you start your business during COVID, the pandemic, because I mean, during COVID, unfortunately, loads of people have passed away. Most of the business have to close down, business closed down, and it was. I know that there was support from the government, but most of the people really, really struggle. A lot of small business they just couldn't handle, and you just find a different way to kind of to say, well, actually, the problem creates opportunity, and you took 100% advantage of the opportunity. Tell me a little bit of that journey. How do you got to the idea of creating Edu Lettings?
So Edu Lettings was created in the June of the first lockdown, so obviously 3 months into the first lockdown, and from that particular point, I obviously saw a gap in the market for one reason or another. There was a very similar company who did something similar to ourselves, who who I looked at their model and looked at the failings as a company and sort of seen how we can structure that and not only deliver a much more financially stable company in terms of sustainable growth,
Mm-hmm.
but equally delivering a world class service to all our service providers, which
Yeah.
would obviously be schools, as we'll get on to, community, and our own staff. So, from that perspective, you talk about COVID and you talk about grants and budgets. And if we move on to schools now, the idea spawned from schools are struggling for income, and certainly from Sport England, who did a recent survey to say that 39% of sporting facilities were actually hidden behind school gates. So if for yourself and those listening, if you can actually take yourself back to your high school, start to reminisce and think of those good times that you had, and probably think how much we wish we were back there. But
Yeah.
from there, you look at the facilities that you had, from sports halls to main halls and theatres and 3G pitches, and those who have got swimming pools, at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, when the school bell rings and those students and teachers go home, that building is then left redundant till the next morning, and like I said, from running costs and people who want to be involved in sport and activity for their own health and social well-being, have not got the facilities to utilise. So I'm sure as the clock start ticking now, you can see, well, you've got an absolute fantastic asset here, with all these fantastic facilities. You've got a group of people who need somewhere to go because leisure centres are closing down at an exponential rate, which is obviously quite worrying for the country. But equally, if you put those two products together, ultimately that's what spawned Edu Lettings, and certainly ensuring that we deliver a world class service to our schools, our community, and our staff was absolutely fundamental in our journey of starting Edu Lettings.
That's actually extremely powerful, and I feel like that's literally mindset of an entrepreneur, because he's being able to connect the dots as well. I mean, even Steve Jobs used to say that sometimes you can't connect the dots looking moving forwards, but you can connect the dots looking
Absolutely.
backwards as well. And I mean, we part of what we do as well is communicating messages that have a positive impact in the world. That's why we work together as well. And we notice, part of our research shows that, I mean, there is a big number of criminality that is happening, I mean, around Bolton, around knife crimes and things like that. So it's actually important for the country to have those children, the group of those peoples utilizing those facilities more, because if they're utilizing those facilities more, then they will be, I mean, they will avoid in crime, they will be more protected, they will be in the right circle. So the work that you're doing is saving lives at the end of the day as well. So that's very powerful. How does it make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, from that perspective, I mean, we're just a vessel that gets those community leaders to where they need to be, because they're the ones who need the shout out. They're the hero. Not all heroes wear capes. The group leaders, the ones who come and hire the facilities from us. From the grassroots football coaches to the swim instructors to the drama teachers and dance producers. They're the people who bring the people in off the street, and we're just creating the vessel for them people to be given that opportunity, both from a small business perspective and equally, rightly as you say, affecting the community, all the way through to give them the opportunity to be involved in activities that stop them getting involved in antisocial behaviour away from schools and homes. So like I said, from that perspective, when we look at things, and often people say to me, what do you do as a business? And quite humbly, I always state, we just sell school space, as I roll my eyes, and people don't really get it. But from that perspective, if you actually look at the impact that Edu Lettings creates around the country now, like I said, it doesn't just generate income for schools, which goes back into education provision to buy new books, to give new facilities. It also then, as rightly you say, gives back to the community in terms of ensuring these facilities are readily available for your next Jack Grealishes, your next Harry Kanes, to go on and play for England in the World Cup, because without school facilities being open, a lot of these clubs wouldn't have anywhere to play.
Wow, wow, and it's incredible because literally I mentioned to you one time before as well that is the type of business that everyone wins in the sense the schools wins because they like you mentioned they receive funds that will again can be put back into education. The groups that are saving our children and saving our communities wins as well because they have the facility to utilize, and again that is the middleman as well that makes that happen. But I believe it's quite tricky as well. Trying to find a system that works, and because how many employees do you have at this moment in time, and how many schools do you work with?
So we work with 80 schools now, which are live schools. Obviously, there are quite a few more in our pipeline. But equally on that, I'd never disregard service. Service is always one. So from that perspective, and I mean fundamental to our growth really is the sustainable growth that we've actually gone through. That I will never take the risk on affecting service against growth. I'll only ever grow once I know the model and the operations are where they need to be. In terms of employees, to answer your question, we just shot of 250 now.
Wow.
Which is quite a scary number to be fair. And on the 15th of every month when we do payroll, the number just seems to be getting bigger and bigger. But like I said, from that perspective, again, our recreation assistants, as we call them, are the lifeblood of our company. From no matter how much hard work I put in or the guys in our central office put in, it's the guys on the ground who deliver the service with a smile. They're opening up facilities, they're signing liability forms, they're introducing them to the sites and fire risk assessments and making sure they're safe and cleaning up for the school the next day. So like I said, the service is particularly on our staff on the ground who I'm very thankful for. And out of those 250, we have some absolute diamonds, who've been with us more or less since the start, and as we were speaking prior to this, 27 of the first 30 are still with us, 2.5 years further on, and for the role that is, I think it's quite extraordinary, so from that perspective I couldn't do without them. And like I said, certainly when I go to visit sites, and I suppose in most jobs it's sometimes difficult when you're sat behind your laptop or on the phone consistently to forget what you actually achieve and what we've just discussed. But from there, when I do take time out in the evenings to go visit the sites, unannounced as well most of the time,
Yeah.
I see the people playing, I see our staff members all in uniform and smiling and enjoying the work, and then equally going meeting with schools for them to tell me the impact that we've had on them, not just from a financial perspective, but equally additional footfall for future students, who may go to that school, for example. So yeah, it's been some journey, and like I said, there's lots of moving cogs, but without the guys on the ground and those 250 people who work for us opening up the centres, it wouldn't be possible.
Wow, it's quite amazing because as we discussed as well, you didn't actually go a massive investment to build, and you got a business that have scaled in the last 2.5 years for for 250 employees. What type of I know that you already have people in place, but what type of systems you had to implement in order to make sure everything works, and you still are capable to maintain the levels of quality that you deliver as well.
I think a wise man once told me about running a business where they said the processes run the business and the system run the process. But from that perspective, we partner with obviously a software provider in terms of School Hire who deliver our software package for us, and the system is secondary to non-market leading, from that perspective, and we work very closely together to ensure that we're delivering an effective software booking system. The best way I could probably describe it to you, sort of like an Airbnb or a booking.com, but for school facilities. You can log onto our website, you can choose your school, choose your facility, just say sports hall, pick your day, Monday 7 till 8, go through, upload all the relevant documentation that we need, put your payment details in, and before you know it, you get an approval or waiting approval email from our central team to say we're just vetting the process before you go in. So if you ever fancied a game of badminton, you could literally log onto our website, and within 20 minutes you could be playing at one of our sites. So like I said, certainly that is the key in terms of obviously ensuring that user experience, in terms of process and time, is exemplary. But then the second part to that then is going sustainably. You said it was a small amount of investment. Without giving away it was a very small £1,000. Like I said, which we started off with. And from that perspective, I've always kept that model as we've grown. We have been quite fortunate in terms of the way that we have grown and been successful, and then reinvested the money that obviously the company take from it back into the company to become better. But from that perspective, there's been no business grants, there's been no loans, there's been no dipping into funds that we didn't need to. Like I said, everything's sustainable, and from that perspective, yeah, really happy with how that's gone.
And I think sustainability is something that is a key word moving forwards as well, where we're talking about, I was in Channel 4's events, and again the word was sustainability. So when the country itself going to a moment, it will be a moment where we need to, we need to be a little bit more attentive and pay a little bit more attention to every financial decision that we make. I think it's quite good seeing that sustainability put in a kind of in the front of the mind. So every business, what type of advice would you give to business that maybe been running for a few years but are not sustainable, and maybe for someone that is trying to build a business now, what type of advice would you give to him in terms of what should he think about in terms of building a sustainable business as well?
Yeah, all about the numbers. Numbers is absolute number one. If you can see from a granular detail, in terms of the numbers that you're turning from your turnover to your GP to your net profit, staffing cost, operational costs, cost of sale, whatever that may be. If you can see those numbers and you understand those numbers, that's when you become a sustainable business, because that's when then you can reinvest into additional marketing and additional digital products to enhance experience for your staff, as in terms of what we're going through at the moment. But like I said, from that perspective, it's taking a very minimal risk, because obviously, as you know, the world that we live in, from COVID being the greatest example, that things can change in a heartbeat, and certainly if anything was to occur in that instance again, and hopefully not, but again, Edu would come out shining on the other side, because like I said, from that perspective, we've built our business based upon those principles.
The principle of numbers. That's really important. I think for all the business that already been running for a few years and are starting up as well, I think numbers are crucial. Numbers and probably systems as well, isn't it? Finding the right systems. Through your journey, what do you feel it was the biggest challenge that you faced?
There's been a few down the line. I think if you speak to not only myself as a business owner, but equally many others, recruitment is certainly up there at the moment, in terms of finding the right people to work for you, and to deliver that service. And even though as a business owner, and sort of the biggest lesson that I've learned more than anything is most of the time someone won't care as much as you do, and like I said, your standards might come here and you have people there, but if you can just push them an extra 20% and you can come down a notch or two, you generally find that grey area which is kind of acceptable from a service perspective. And like I said, you're always going to get the diamonds who push on and who want to do the best that they can be. But certainly working with 250 people as we do, that's certainly been my biggest lesson and biggest challenge so far. But like I said, from there, it's supporting those people, and that's what's important, to give everyone equal opportunity, to give everyone the right training and inductions, to feel supported, because a lot of our positions are lone working as well. So like I said, it can be quite gory places, big schools. You can imagine locking up a school at 10 o'clock at night, creaky floorboards, lights are turning on and off, gates on a wet, cold evening, like I said, it can be quite demanding. So from there, it's ensuring that person feels supported, they feel safe, they've had the right training and inductions for any situation that arises, and certainly at Edu is certainly something that I push my regional operations managers to ensure that they're providing to the staff on the ground at all times.
Yeah, probably I would say that Edu Lettings came Edu for education.
That's it. That's it. I often get it all the time. They say edu, they say edu, and I just go, yeah, it's whatever you want to call it right now. But yeah, that's exactly where it comes from. It was education lettings, so edu lettings.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Tell me, how did I mean? I'm very impressed with the scalability of your business as well. What changed from the last 2.5 years for yourself? How do you feel? How do you feel, Nick, nowadays?
I don't really want to sound too sentimental here, but I grew up a lot, and my nan was really, really close to me as a person. Unfortunately, passed away through COVID,
Right.
but from that perspective, she always believed in me, and equally, I always believed in myself that one day I would always run a very successful business. And from that perspective, that was my drive at all times. But from the first question that you asked in terms of learning from other people, I was always learning. I was always staying behind the extra half an hour and hour in jobs when I didn't really need to, but just listening, watching, learning from mistakes that others had made, gaining the vital experience and skill sets that I had, and believing many mistakes myself along the way, But at the same point, this was the right opportunity, this was the right time. And I didn't need to do that because I did have other opportunities for employment, after COVID. But like I said, to take the opportunity to start Edu was perfect within the industry, community, sport and leisure, education. Again, from the first question about who I am, it was all the tick boxes that I'd done before, to put all them together plus the skills that I'd learned made me the person that I am. But equally, it's not just about me, the support network around me, Mike Blundell, who was obviously the co-founder at the time, I couldn't have done it without him. We remain very, very, very close friends up until this day. I don't speak to him 6 times a day as I used to, but like I said, from there we're still close. And David and Charlie, obviously, who work with me now, from the software provider and investment. Again, they bring in certain skills that have took me on again, to the next level. But again, even though it may say my name above the door, it doesn't mean that I stop learning. I'm always looking out for particularly those people and equally my own staff who come with new ideas and new ways of working with people that I take on board. And any best practice, it's fundamental that we pass that knowledge on and like I said, share it as much as we can.
Sounds good. Sounds good. You mentioned about the experience that you learned with your nan as well, and she always believed. Was she a very important figure in your life?
Oh, absolutely. Anyone who knows me personally will know how much my nan ever meant to me. And like I said, I wish she could see the person, obviously, in terms of who I am today and what Edu has got to. But like I said, from the like I said, I look up to the sky every day and be grateful for the time that I spent with her, and hopefully she's looking down to be proud of who I've turned out to be and what we've achieved so far.
If you could say anything to her, what would you say?
I'd do anything to just have 2 minutes. Yeah, absolutely.
That's powerful,
Yeah.
man. That's powerful. In terms of moving forwards as well, what is the ambitions that Edu Lettings have?
I think in terms of moving forward as a company, and again I mentioned this on a few occasions, I never want to disrupt the service that we provide, and again I often describe this to my SLT team as a house of cards. We have a service model at the moment that works. It works for all three of who we provide the service to, but ultimately it will get to a level there where that house of cards starts shaking, where then we need to build outward rather than upwards, and they're the discussions that we're having at the moment, that I personally believe that we can extend by another 10 to 20 schools to get to around the 100 mark, but then from there we'll have to look at the model again, of what extra support structures do we put in place to allow people to do their job, because ultimately if you go upwards without going outwards, it's going to fall over at some point. So from that perspective, again, lessons that I've learned in the past, to be sustainable, take your time, don't run before you can walk, make sure that everything's set from the ground upwards, and then once that is built, then go and grow your business, because like I said, from the service then we'll never be affected, and we'll always be able to deliver the world-class service that we offer.
That's amazing. Looking at the times that we're moving forwards, where because of the crisis that we might be facing, where the prices of everything is going up, I believe that many people going to be trying to take maybe a side job or maybe open a side business and trying to find, or sometimes just find ways of giving back to the community as well. What key advice would you give for young entrepreneurs?
I think from there, it's always to work as hard as you can. And again, I know there's a balance here, and I don't want to say that work, because equally I'm, as many people know, I'm a fond Man United fan, following them all over the world. I've got 3 young children who I spend a lot of time with. I coach a grassroots team, so you might think, God, where do all these hours come from? And I certainly believe that myself sometimes, But from that perspective, finding the balance. But when you're in work as hard as you can work. Learn from the people who are around you. Learn your own skill sets and what you're good at. Focus on, look forward, and don't look at the here and now. Focus on 3 steps ahead of where do I want to get to? What did I want to do? Because my dream was always to run my own business. My dream was always to be successful. And I know that's not for everybody, but equally that was mine. And whatever step I was on within my career or journey, it was always in the back of my head to say, that's where I want to go. So I'm going to listen really carefully to what they're saying here. When I get sent an Excel sheet through in my old life, I'm looking at every single cell, every single column, every single row, just to grasp in terms of knowledge of what they're actually looking at. And I did a presentation last week to my SLT team about communication, and one of them, there was 3 steps of how to effectively communicate with others, and from there, one of those steps was to play what you much call devil's advocate, really, in terms of what are they going to ask me back, so all the time. And I take this to a lot of not sales pitches and team meets, but I often think the process through, and I think, well, if I was in their position and I was talking to me, what would I be saying, or what would I want? So from that perspective, I often ask a lot of questions, but I already know the answer. So from that perspective, even from sales to team meetings, whatever that may be, it always puts me on the front foot, but always coming back to working as hard as I can at every single moment that I've got in work to be the best version of me, and ultimately that's what I try to do every day.
That's really powerful. Another thing that you mentioned that I think is quite interesting is the fact that through your entire journey you always wanted to run your own business as well, and you utilize the opportunities that life's been giving to you to help you to kind of going one step further. And you mentioned as well that the relationship with your nanny was kind of a massive drive for that as well. So tell me what process, do you have a particular book, or is there any particular thing that you done during that process when you were just learning that you feel like it was great to kind of storage that information, or to memorize it, or to kind of just come back and reflect on it as well?
Yeah, I think from there, you mentioned important people as we spoke to last time, whether it be my nan or whether it be my first football coach Ian, who I remember fondly, or whether it be people who I met in America, or people who I've come back and worked for, or the college lecturer that I learned how to become an assessor from. It was remembering all those people and all the good things that those people have and they brought out in you, and equally that's how I am as a managing director. I should hope that's how I am as a person, as a friend. I generally be that friend that people ring for advice. Sometimes I might not have the right answer, but I'll have the honest answer. And I always say how it is, and where you say reflect, every day I reflect. I look, and maybe sometimes I'm harsh on myself in terms of what could have gone better. And I look at Edu, and certainly my SLT team will hear it sometimes when we have an issue. But if we have an issue, how many good things have happened, and from that issue, let's solve it, let's deal with it, and let's just learn from it so it never happens again, and ultimately, like I said before, every day is a learning day, and like I said, if I can pass on even an ounce of my knowledge onto somebody else for that person to be successful, whether that be with me or whether that be within a future career, I think that's my next step, in terms of what I want to do and what I want to achieve, knowing that I can look at my kids and I can go to sleep at night and be happy that I've done the best that I can do for for anybody that crosses paths with me.
Should we expect to see a book? A book?
Yeah, I think from there they could be for some stories. Either, like I said, even from my football days to my studying days when I even did some security work at some point. But like I said, from that perspective, for me, and it's just be humble, and I've learned that I've learned that along the way, that there's lots of people who want it, but there's not many people who go and work for it. And like I said, if you go to work every single day, whether that be a part-time job with ourselves, stacking shelves in Asda, or delivery driving for Amazon, just go and do the best that you can do at every moment that you work, and set the fundamental skills within yourself to build upon them, because ultimately that's how it happens. Yes, there's a little bit of luck along the way, but ultimately if you don't work hard, and like I said, you want the best for you and the people around you, then
Yeah.
you're never going to be there.
It's funny because you mentioned something that I think is quite important as well. Of course, we both running businesses. It's the same thing. When you work for someone else, there is the pressure of that person implementing their own standards into you.
Yeah.
But people sometimes think, oh, when I become a business owner, this is when I'm going to work hard. When I become a business owner, this is when I'm going to look into details. But actually, if you don't have the experience, and if you don't have the standards at that stage, you're just going to get into the business, and whatever standards you used to do in your previous job, when you thought, oh, you're not affecting your life, you are, because your mindset is not ready to have a very high standards. And then as you build a team, if your standards are not high, how do you expect your team to have that high standards as well?
Absolutely. And I watched a presentation not so long ago on a business networking day, about building a world-class team and recruiting on character, because you look at that, and you that not just your standards but equally the work ethic is huge for me, but like I said, from that perspective, you look at a CV and it probably only tells you what the person wants you to know. You don't put everything on a CV, do you? Or equally, if you have an interview, I mean, here's me doing a podcast, but from there anyone can be good for 10 minutes, right? But from that perspective, it's how you are in the job, set tasks rather than interview. In our perspective, we generally have a classroom with a window open, a bin full, a stain on the floor, that person will come in, identify, clean up, tidy, leave that room how it should be left for the schools the next day. So like I said, set tasks, and certainly you'll pick the people who want to work hard, the people who want to do it, and they want to do it for the right reasons as well. Like I said, if you look at the 250 staff we have single mums who husband comes home from full-time work and then has the children, she goes out to earn extra money. Obviously, with the cost of living being so high at the moment, we have students who are at university during the day who want a job in sport and leisure in the evening, which is absolutely perfect for them over at Christmas when they all go home. but like I said, we have a wide range of people and who are on their own pathways, and certainly when I'm even on LinkedIn and I look at these people and they're all tagged into work at Edu Lettings, everyone that I see who tries to connect, it makes me smile, that we're one part of their journey, and I'm not selfish enough to think that we're going to be the end of their journey, because we're going to lose good people along the way, but long as those good people go on to achieve what they want to achieve, and be happy, then like I said, for me, I'm happy from that.
I can see Edu Lettings in the next 20 years having some football players come in and say, oh, when I was young, I used to do the activities. Edu Lettings was there.
Yeah.
Is that the same vision that you have for Edu Lettings?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of places we go unnoticed in that, because equally we do work on the school's behalf, so I think one of the biggest examples I can give is the De La Salle Academy in Liverpool. Is actually Wayne Rooney's old school. There's a couple around the country who have had, and generally another one, St Edmunds Arrowsmiths in Wigan. You have Joe Burgess and the lads who've just been in the Rugby League World Cup,
Wow.
for example. But again, people remember schools they trained at, and from us, Edu Lettings may be an unsung hero, but equally, if we can give an opportunity for the next Harry Kane, the next Jack Grealish, the next Jude Bellingham, to go and perform their sport and activity, to go on and push and be bigger and better things, then yeah, absolutely, it'd be great.
Exciting. Anything else that you'd like to add in our podcast today?
No, I think from yourself, it's been an absolute pleasure not only to be here today, but working alongside you in the last 3 months, and certainly again, as we were speaking before, watching the videos that you've created from us from a title perspective, it certainly brought Edu to light. And
Thank
you
you.
know, I sometimes people say, "What do you do?" in sort of school space, but looking at the videos that you've created for us, it just brings it to life. And from my perspective and the feedback that I've received from close family and friends, is just wow. Not just the videos, but equally what we do, and obviously the wider community that we impact in our day-to-day jobs.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nick. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for being the great person that you are as well. I'm just having a chat with you now. I'm 100% sure. I didn't met your auntie, your grandma, but I know she will be very proud of you because
Sure.
what you have achieved and the model that you have created will inspire many other people to do in whatever industries they decide to do something, because in the last 2 years you have built a very successful business that now are giving opportunities to over 200 people, 250 people. So you are impacted their lives in different ways, and that is not even counting the young people that you're helping by creating that systems that allows them to kind of find different activities that will keep them out of trouble as well. So thank you. Keep going with the great work that you do, and thank you very much
Yeah.
for coming for the podcast.
Thank you very much.